Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new episode of the Wrassingh Show. And I'm so hyped about this one because joining us today is the Punjabi War Prince from England, UK, standing at 5 feet 10, the first ever and the longest reigning FFW Commonwealth champion with over an ongoing reign of 1100 days as champion and the current FFW champion. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Hari Singh. Hari, welcome to the show. It is such an honor and pleasure to have you on here.
Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
I'm so hyped about this one, not only because you're the Punjabi War Prince, but also the first time ever when we have a Singh guest on the show. It's always been the Singh host, but for the first time ever, I'm having a Singh guest. So it's such a pleasure. Thank you.
No, honestly, pleasure to be here. And obviously, there's not a lot of Punjabi wrestlers within the industry and things like that. So I can appreciate that. I may be the first one, but yeah, pleasure to be that guest as well. So yeah, thank you.
That's right. I was always wondering because we've had our Flairs and our Lashleys and, all these people on the show, but I had always been waiting for the Singh to show up. And, I was wondering who would it be, and there could be nobody better than the Punjabi War Prince. So how is your day going so far, Hari?
Yeah, it's been pretty normal so far. Went to the gym in the morning, and then I was just at work. So yeah, because I work on the side of being a professional wrestler on the independent scene. That tends to be the case with most people. So yeah, just finished work, and now I'm gonna do this, and then probably hit the gym again a little bit later on. So yeah,
that is awesome. And you mentioned that you were at work, which is something that you do outside of wrestling as well. Now work for a lot of people, and especially people from an Indian background and Punjabi background, as you said, there's not a lot of Punjabis in the wrestling business, and the reason is because work is work for them, right? It's like going 9-to-5 job, being a doctor, being an engineer, all that stuff. So wrestling in an Indian household is still a bit of unorthodox, and we're going to talk all that stuff, and we start right from the very beginning, from your childhood. Can you tell us something about your childhood? If wrestling was a big part of it, if you were throwing your siblings, your friends around, or were you a normal kid growing up? Tell us all about it.
We'll go even past that. So before I was born, my dad was very into professional wrestling as well. So at the time, him and my grandparents and then his siblings, they'd all watch World of Sport on ITV in the UK. And that was the professional wrestling at that time. So that was like Big Daddy, Johnny Saint, Mick McManus, all of those guys would be on. And then from a young age, I can't really remember exactly when. I couldn't have been older than 10, I don't think. From younger than that, I would say. My cousins used to bring round the video games, and that was my first exposure really to pro wrestling. It was SmackDown Just Bring It, and that was my first exposure to WWE. And I remember Kane, The Undertaker, just as characters and their entrances from the game. And then I started watching that more and more. I can't remember the first kind of like episode or what matches were on in that first episode. I can't really remember when that happened. But one thing I kind of remember when I started watching it was King Booker was just around. It was like WrestleMania 23 time. So there was like The Undertaker versus Batista, Bobby Lashley versus Umaga, and then all of those things were going on at the time. So that's when I started regularly watching it. And then I was a fan. I was just used to play the games. My friends would come around and we'd watch the pay-per-views together, and obviously like wrestle around as well, like most kids do at that age. And then I started getting older and older, and then I was 15 at the time. I actually stopped watching wrestling for a little bit. Like most kids grow out of it at some age, and I think I was going through that period of growing out of it. But then my younger cousins, they were getting in the age of starting to watch it again. So I would be listening to their conversation about wrestling. Like, oh yeah, I remember all of these guys. And then I decided to watch Wrestlemania 27. This was my first show watching it for maybe about a year. I stopped watching it for about a year or so. And then once I watched that, I was speaking with my dad about it because we watched it together, and we said, "Shall we go to WrestleMania next year?" Lo and behold, the next day, they announced The Rock versus John Cena for the next year, and we're like, "Yeah, we're definitely going to go." Right?
Wow.
We went to that trip in Miami, and when I came back, I kind of decided, like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. And that was it. I just started looking for training and then never looked back.
That's beautiful. Wow. And so are you telling me that Michael Cole versus Jerry Lawler, that WrestleMania got you back into wrestling? Are you being serious?
It really did. It really did. But surprisingly, I mean, probably not surprisingly to some, is within that match, it was, and it's still probably my favorite match to this day. It was The Undertaker versus Triple H round 1 at WrestleMania. Not round 1 because they wrestled years prior to that, but that WrestleMania 27. It was that one, and then it was one thing I distinctly remember was the streak. Like, that was a massive thing, and I knew about it even when I stopped watching it. And then when Triple H hit the tombstone, I was like, "That's it, it's done." And I was that was the most shocked I've ever been watching wrestling, and then that brought me back for sure.
It's crazy. I mean, I thought all we had in common was the sing and our love for pro wrestling. But the more you told me about your story, I mean, I got into wrestling through video games too. And, I have a special bond with my dad, and we watched wrestling together. And the match that got me into wrestling was an Undertaker match against Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 25. So a lot of similarities here. That's beautiful. That's amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm pretty sure that your younger cousins who, got you back into wrestling partially, they must be very happy and so thrilled to see your wrestling journey as you rise up the ranks now.
Yeah, they love it. Because actually, surprisingly, a couple of weeks ago, I was wrestling back in Birmingham, which is where they live. And they saw me there for the first time since I was 18. I'm 25 now. So it's been so many years since they've seen me, and they've, it's nice to come full circle a little bit in that way. So yeah, it was really nice to have them there.
Beautiful. Do you get a bit nervous when your family is ringside and they're watching you, or does that just motivate you even more to be better in the ring?
Yeah, it's more of a motivation more than anything else. I get nervous every time, but the severity of it and the length of it differs depending on what show it is, what's at stake, and things like that. But I get nervous every single time. It just depends on the length of it, that's all. But with my family watching it's obviously more special then because they don't come often, and I wrestle so many times a year. And if they see me once in that year, it's important to me. So
it's amazing. That's great. Yep. And a supportive family is all that we all need, right? And you can do anything. You can achieve the impossible. But let's talk about your family and their reaction to when you actually came out. WrestleMania 28, you come back and you're like, you know what? I'm going to be a professional wrestler. How did your family react to that decision of yours?
I mean, at the time when you're only 15, kids say all kinds of things, don't they? Right. When they're just like, I'm just gonna do it. I think with my dad, he's been supportive from day one. Obviously because we used to watch it together, and at the time he paid for all the trips and things like that to go. So he was always supportive, and he always used to take me to training and things like that. But with my mother, she was just like, just focus on education. You don't need wrestling right now. It's just get your in the UK we call them GCSEs, and that's what I was going through at the time, which is like your these are the exams you do it in your high school. So you do those first, and then you move on to college, and you move on to university. So I just do all of that. Like, wrestling's fine. Like, do completely have it on the side, but have it as a minor thing. And she's like, just do your education and get a normal job. And obviously her mindset's changed now after me doing this for like 10 years. So yeah, it was fun though at the time.
You've been doing such an amazing job. You're making a name for yourself around the world when it comes to wrestling and independent circuit. It's great. Now, you've been trained by some very good wrestlers too. I mean, you've been trained by Carl Burks, Maddox. Can you tell us about the training process? How easy or how difficult or challenging did you find it to be?
To be honest, in the initial stages, it was tough because you're going through, your body's starting to get used to throwing yourself at the ground effectively. And I remember a couple of times I came back from training sessions and my granddad would be in the house and I'd just be sore. I couldn't move much. And my granddad was just like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, as in, because you're coming home every week and you're battered. I'm like, well, it is what it is. I love it though. And it's tough in some ways because you're having to go through that. And then I was just getting into the gym at that point because I'm like, I need to be stronger if I'm going to be able to do all these things. So it's a whole lifestyle change, right, in the initial stages. But going through that kind of training, it really prepares you for shows and things like that. I mean, if I look back on it, I kind of wish, knowing what I know now, I would have looked more into different training schools, because I just kind of looked for ones. When you start, you just Google wrestling schools near you, and it wasn't even that close to me. It was about like 45 minutes away from me, but I would go just because I was like, this must be the nearest one. And it was okay, but there was definitely better training schools around. So I kind of wish I went there, but looking back on it, I wouldn't change it now, you know.
That's awesome. And a big part of training to be a wrestler is that you have to be a safe wrestler. You have to learn, how to keep your opponent safe and keep yourself safe. Mm-hmm. Now, did you ever encounter somebody who was not a very safe wrestler? Can you tell us something about that part?
Yeah, you meet loads of people like that, but part of being, you meet them at all different levels as well. There's some people that you'll see on TV or you'll see on like a good level in the independent scene, and they're not that safe. And you only know these things once you've wrestled them, really, or like you hear stories or anything like that. But you meet loads of people from a different level, all different levels. Like there's some people, obviously, in the initial stages, it's expected that you're not going to be 100% safe because you're still going through that learning process. But part of being a good wrestler is being able to look after yourself as well. So you got to know how to get around these things if you know that they're unsafe. That's all it is. But for the most part, everyone I wrestle is, most people that I wrestle now are fairly safe. And once you start building up that trust with them, you can do like the crazier things, but you need to, I think, in order to gain a good reputation, in order to get to a certain level as well, you have to have an element of safe about you, and everyone has to have that trust with you if you're going to get to a certain level. And if you don't have that, you're not going to excel, I don't think.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you started wrestling full-time about 2012, 2013, is that right?
Not so much full-time. So I started training in 2012.
Okay.
And then I was just doing like 8 shows a year for a couple of years, because that when you start, you don't know how to go about things. And I was just doing the training school shows. So they would host shows 8 times a year, and I'd be on those. And then you start to meet other people, and then you realize you need to be wrestling a hell of a lot more. So then when I jumped from Carl's place to Mad Dog was running close to 100 shows a year. So I was wrestling like quite a lot at that time, at least once a week minimum. And that's when I started to realize I need to be doing this in order to get better. But then when I was with them, I'd only be wrestling the same people, because Mad Dog would book people outside of the training school, which was really good for people who were there, because you can start to learn off other people. And that's the way to grow. You don't grow by wrestling the same people all the time. You need to be wrestling different people of different skill level. And because you're all trained together all the time, you kind of know each other and you know each other's stuff. So it gets not easy, but it gets a bit the same after a while. So you need to branch out and start doing other things. That's what I started doing. I moved to university, and I chose Leicester because Robbie Brookside School was there. So I went to that school at the time, and then that's when I started branching out and doing my own solo thing, like doing my own kind of thing at that time, which was branching out to promotion, saying, look, I've been wrestling for this long, here's some footage, here's some pictures, if there's any availability in your shows. Like that's when I started doing that, and that was around 2016. So I would say I was full-time around 2016 kind of time.
That's crazy. Yeah. So you were full-time around 2016, and 2018 is the year where you, I believe, get one of your best matches, until then. I believe 2018 you wrestled Pete Dunne in 2 years, ever since, you became full-time. So how was that experience? And before you answer that question, so 2018, I believe you were still in college, you were still in university?
I was in my second year of university, yeah.
That's crazy. So your sophomore year. Did you go around telling everybody that you're going to be wrestling Pete Dunne later in the evening?
Not a lot of people like watch wrestling, at least at that age anyway. So everyone watched it when I was watching it as a kid, so that we could talk about those things like the Hardy Boys. Like I remember
right.
Jeff's title run. Like most people my age know about Jeff Hardy's title run at that time, The Undertaker. So that you could relate to him in that sense, but no one watched it past that really. So you could only speak to them about that. And then when you mentioned Pete Dunne, like as great of a name he is and as great of a wrestler he is, people who are casual fans just don't know him. So you wouldn't mention those things, but my close friends for sure. I was like, I'm wrestling one of the biggest UK names, and like it's insane. So
that is you. But in college, were you more like Spider-Man, hiding your true powers, not telling people who you actually were, or were you like all over? Everybody knew that you were also a professional wrestler, apart from being a student.
No, in university, word travels really quickly, especially in the age of social media as well. So obviously, when you're meeting all these people, the first thing you do is like, "Oh, what's your Instagram? What's your Twitter? Whatever it is." And because everything that I put out, well, not everything, but 90% of what I put out is wrestling based. You can all guess it from that, So people knew because of that, and I was referenced as like the wrestler like so many times to like various people. That's how people knew me. Like, oh, he's the guy that wrestles. So that's how people knew me from that. But I mean, I'd never introduce myself and say like I'm a wrestler. It's just something that people found out and they knew,
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you mentioned social media, because you know what? In this day and age, you got to be very careful about what you post on social media. People right now, I mean, we recently saw with the wrestler who was jumping ship from WWE to AEW, who got in hot tub because of social media. Which brings us today to our debut segment of a new segment. It's a new segment we're introducing today, and we're introducing it with you. And the segment is... That's right. So the segment is Wrestling with Tweets. And that segment is debuting today. And that's because we were going through your Twitter. We went way back. We went all the way back. And we found stuff that, I don't know if it's career threatening, but it's bad. It's really bad. It's very controversial.
Oh God,
so
no.
We dug it up. We have it here. We're gonna run it through you, and we're gonna get your opinion, get your thoughts on this. So you look quite nervous right there. What is it that you put out that you are afraid of?
Well, I remember being a fan, and I definitely display my displeasure to a lot of wrestling audiences and things like that. So that's what I'm most scared of at that point. So,
it's funny you mentioned social media, which I was like, you know what, I have to make that happen now. So now we're gonna be taking a look at some tweets you probably wish you never tweeted, and we're gonna start off big. We're gonna be starting off with this tweet right here. Oh my God, I'm in for the Brad Maddox's WWE era. Now this beats people power. Are you telling me that you're really a fan of Brad Maddox? Harry, are you serious?
You know what, though? I remember this segment as well. There was a segment where I can't remember the ins and outs of the details, but he came across, like, he was supposed to come across very awkward, and he did a great job of that, and it was so funny to me. And I was like, I don't know, that might be that segment, or this was when he booked the match of Chris Jericho versus RVD, maybe. And I was so infatuated as a fan at that point. I was like, this is great. Brad Maddox is fantastic. So
yeah,
I think that's what that was.
I came across this tweet, and I'm like, this guy, he cannot be serious right now. Probably the only guy who popped for Brad Maddox. Wow. So, do you regret that tweet now, Harry?
No, I stand by it. I stand by it. It entertained me at the time, so it was great.
Okay, all right. You're standing by this one. You probably would not want to stand by this one up next. Really want Sin Cara to wrestle on Raw tonight. Highly unlikely, though. Sad face. Hashtag WWE. Sin Cara now, huh? What's going on there?
You know what? There was a time I loved Sin Cara. He was like my favorite wrestler coming in. Because he came in with a huge hype around him, and even in Mexico, he was fantastic. Like, such a great wrestler. There's no disputing that he was a great wrestler in Mexico. However, when he came to the WWE, he had a very big problem with adjusting to the style, and I don't know the ins and outs of what happened there, but from what I understand, there was just there was a transition period, and he just didn't adjust to it very well, which is a shame. But as a fan, he was really exciting to me, and I loved the handspring he did as well. And I was never in the era of watching Tajiri, so I never really saw it before. So when he was doing it there, I was infatuated by how he used to move around. So yeah.
All right. So no regrets again, right?
No regrets on that one either. I'm sure you're going to dig up something there.
Yeah, I got something else now. I heard you don't like retirements, and especially wrestling retirements. Not a big fan.
Yeah. Okay. I understand why I said this as well.
So this was a roller coaster of emotions. I laughed when I saw these. So Mark Henry said that he was, retiring, and I saw these roller coaster of emotions and your tweets. Oh damn, he's retiring. I appreciate him a lot more than I did, and definitely earned me respect and all that good stuff. And then you see that he's worked you, and you just became a fan, and he got more of your respect. I mean, that's he really got you work, didn't he?
That was one of the best segments ever, and it was great because people still talk about that to this day and how great it was, because it got everyone emotions high when everyone thought that he was retiring, and then when he did the World's Strongest Slam, I can picture it so well right now in his salmon jacket, and he did his move to John Cena, didn't he? And everyone went mad.
That's right. Everybody got worked. And these tweets, they just show that, I mean, lots of wrestlers now, especially with the NIL stuff that WWE is doing now, a lot of people who are entering the wrestling business are not actually fans of the business. They just come in because they're athletes and they want to make it big, and they come in. But with these tweets that we're seeing, it shows that Hari is not just a wrestler, but a wrestling fan himself, which is so important. I mean, you can only appreciate the art enough if you are a fan yourself, which these tweets show. But still, that doesn't spare you from this very last tweet that I have left in my bag. AJ Lee is the new Taylor Swift of the wrestling world. Is that right?
I don't know what that is. I think my guess, I don't really understand what I meant there, but I can make one conclusion from that. I had a crush on Taylor Swift, and I had a crush on AJ. So I can only make that as the comparison. Otherwise, I don't know what I meant there.
Okay. So no regrets again, I guess.
No, I have to. I mean, maybe that last one. I mean, slight regret there because I can't make sense of it now. But yeah, now everyone knows I had a crush on both of them. I mean, I still have a crush on Taylor Swift. I'm going to put it out there. So yeah.
All right. So yeah, I guess you won our this round of wrestling with tweets. You are the winner. So congratulations. Oh, that was fun. So before we move on, and since we're talking about your wrestling career, I would also like to draw some attention towards your ring gear, which really, I was really awestruck, and I was happy when I saw the tweet from you. The ring gear here, as we can see, is inspired by the 6 5Ks. Of course, the 5Ks, being the cage, the kanga, the kripa, and the kachan. So tell us about this. I mean, what inspired you to, make this ring gear inspired by the kacha? How did you get this in your mind that, hey, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be, spreading word out about the 5Ks and then, coming up with such a ring gear?
So when I was growing up, I was very close to my granddad. I still am. Thankfully, he's still here. And being in a Sikh household, I would know a lot. I was brought up in a very, not religious way per se, but I was brought up with a lot of Sikh traditions and very much learning about the religion and about the Indian culture and all of that. And I couldn't get enough in terms of learning about it. Every morning I'd be doing bath is what we'd call it, but which is praying to the people that don't understand that. So I'd be doing those kind of things, and I thought I really want to lean into this a little bit here. I want to bring out that culture a little bit more because I don't think that's really shown so much, especially with. There's a lack of Indian wrestlers in the whole world, I would say, compared to everybody else. And that was something I was like, okay, if I'm the person who's going to be representing this, I want to lean into it as much as I can, right? And in a way that feels authentic to me and in a way that feels genuine as well. So that's where that kind of inspiration came from. But on top of that, knowing what the kajera are, and how it was worn in battle, and Sikh warriors would wear this because it was something where they weren't able to change so often. They needed something comfortable in combat. They needed something which was functional, right? So, and they needed something to show their humbleness and all of those things. And that's something that I have, and that's something that I wanted to show. Unfortunately, in the wrestling world, in my opinion, you can't just wear the plain whites because you need to stand out a little bit more, and that's where the humbleness lies from. But for me, it was like, okay, I'm gonna wear the shorts, and it's not because it's not kajeda, but it's inspired from that, right? So that's where I kind of that's why I kind of wanted to do that, you know.
I love it. I love it. And for those of you who are wondering, the 5Ks are the Cara, which is what we are wearing. Show it to the audience here. Yeah, there you go. The Cara is one of the 5Ks. Of course, the Keish, the hair, the Kripan, the Guru Kripan, the Guru's Kripan, and the Guru Six Kripan, and it only rises up, for the humanity, for the good of the humanity. And that's about it. The only one time it rises up is for the good. It's only for the kripa. The kanga is, of course, the comb, and the kacha is what we're talking about. Is what's the inspiration behind this outfit right here? It's incredible what you're doing, and again, we see in wrestling, especially when it comes to international stars, a lot of times the gimmicks or the way they're portrayed on television or on the show, it's very stereotyped. They often are handed very stereotypical characters, gimmicks, or more than often they're always heels. Now, how do you feel about the stereotype, how they're stereotyped like this, and they're often villains when it comes to international stars, when it comes to Indians? Most of the times they're heels. What do you feel about it?
It's just one of those things where I'd like things to be seen in a different light. And I've worked face most of my career. I've always worked as a good guy most of my career. And it's always gone down well. It's always so to me, if you asked me this question maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I would have said, because it's easy, because we look different. And then everyone can treat us in a different way. And that's why I would have said then. But me being a good guy for the last, I don't know, I think I've been mostly face for the last 4 or 5 years. It's always worked well, in my opinion. I don't think I've ever come across as a heel, because people invest into the character. They don't invest into how you look, in my opinion. And it's a shame in some ways that we keep being portrayed as the heels or anybody else, because I think most of the time, Great Khali went in between both, but I think he was most well known for being a heel. But for me now, I kind of want to make that change, and wherever I may end up going, I hope I get to do some face work at some point. Whatever I get brought in to do, I will do. But eventually I would like to be seen in a more face light, I would say. So.
I love it. So you want to make a difference. And while making a difference, you also want to entertain the world and represent the community and represent the culture and the religion in a positive manner. That's incredible. And the one thing I had a problem with when it came to Jinder Mahal was the turban. I mean, what I really like is that he shed some light on the culture, the Bhangra, the colorful stuff. I like that. But the turban I had a problem with because, you're getting to the ring, you walk into the ring in a turban, and when you're wrestling, you take it off. So you're sending across a message to people who don't know is that it's okay to take off the turban in public. So, and you're representing it in such a great way. After that is inspired by the Kacha, one of the 5Ks, talking about it. It's very important and something that we can all very much appreciate. Now, you are the Punjabi War Prince, but I believe that you were also once the Bollywood Dream. So, can you tell us the transition from the Bollywood Dream to now being the Punjabi War Prince? How did this change come about?
So there was several reasons for this kind of change. I would say the first reason was obviously when you do the Bollywood gimmick has been seen so many times now, but people in the UK love it. I believe they still love it to this day. But it was one of those things where I wanted to be seen in a more serious light, and it was difficult to do that when you're dancing to the ring and there for a good time type situation. So it was difficult to be seen as a legitimate competitor, difficult to be seen as a champion. Like in Bollywood is fantastic, and I still love it to this day. But being seen in a wrestling light, it doesn't always work out for you, in my opinion. Secondly was NXT UK was becoming a big thing here, and those guys there would still work the independents. And one of the guys that was doing Bollywood was Amir Jordan, and he was signed to NXT UK, and he was quite big in the UK in the independent scene at the time. And because he was doing it and most well known for it, everyone kept thinking that I stole his stuff, and everyone would draw that comparison between me and him. And I never wanted to be a knockoff of somebody else. I wanted to do my own thing. Yep. So that's when I kind of knew I needed to change what I was doing. And then the third reason was, as we've said before earlier on, is Indian gimmicks have always been either heel or the same thing of everything that's been done. And I was like, there's so much culture in India. How have we only focused on Bollywood this whole time, really? Like that, I didn't think we focused on much else other than that. And I was thinking, how can we... India has been through several wars before, right? And there's a lot of culture in Sikh warriors, Indian warriors, and things like that. And I thought, let's bring this into it. And then I thought, let's see if I can make this work. And there's many inspirations I take from that. And you see different bits of my entrance and things like that, which I'll always reference back to some part of history within India. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to bring in something different in the culture that wasn't Bollywood or wasn't seen before.
That's the beautiful thing about you. Not only are you a tremendous wrestler, but you're also, representing the culture of the country in such a positive light and spreading awareness. And, there's a reason behind everything you do. It's such a breath of fresh air, something unique, something new to the table, to the industry. It's beautiful, and I cannot wait for the world to see it on national or international TV. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen in the near future, and I can't wait for it to happen. Now, you just mentioned NXT UK, and we were talking about Pete Dunne. Can you just quickly tell us about the whole experience? How was it wrestling against, Dunne? And, did the nerves kick in? Were you motivated, ready to go? The match was wonderful, but how were you feeling from the inside?
So I actually met Pete a year before that. And it's funny because we're both from Birmingham, but we never met. The first place we met was in Lisbon, Portugal, right? And we met there, and us being the only fluent English speakers, we kind of just gravitated towards each other, and we were just talking about the show. I went to his training session out there, and just little things like that. So we kind of already knew each other at that time. And then we were booked on the same show in France 2 weeks before that. So we were traveling together, and he's helped me out so much in so many different ways. He helped me get my name in with certain promotions. He's trained with me when he's come back from NXT. And when he comes back to England, he'll come for a few days. And he's helped me so much in so many ways, from the gym to actual wrestling to just so many different things. So being able to wrestle him was a huge thing for me, because I wanted to show that I'm learning from him, and I wanted to show that I was of a certain standard, that he could trust me when he wrestled me, and that I want to be able to hang with him, right? And that was what it was for me. I don't think I've ever been that nervous for a long, long time. I've been very nervous in many situations, from doing progress or doing various different things, but that was one where I was nervous the whole day. And looking back on it, it was a really fun match. And obviously now I would change so many different things because of how much I've learned. But at the time, I wouldn't have changed a thing, because it was how complimentary he was and how much great advice he gave me. And especially with how hard he hits as well, you have to learn. So yeah, he probably hate me for saying this, but he's a great guy. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. And from somebody, a fan, like everybody watching this right now, you went from a fan attending Wrestlemania, watching it on TV, to wrestling, some of the greatest, and also becoming one of the greatest yourself, and soon to be an international star. But the world's going to be talking about you. It's incredible. Now, I know that you mentioned the goals that you have in your mind. You did send out a list of wrestlers that you want to compete against. And at the very end of the list, you said that you want a WWE match. Now, Pete Dunne, we know, is a part of NXT 2.0. So when are we going to see this Pete Dunne versus Hari Singh on NXT 2.0? Can you give us a little insight?
I would love to. I think the main thing, the reason why I would put the WWE thing is because I grew up as a fan. I may not end up there as my full time job in wrestling in the end. I would love to, if that's the case, but that may not happen. But for me, it's like being able to wrestle there once to say I did it. That's a big thing for me. But hopefully I get to wrestle Pete again. That would be insane. Probably like a nice full circle thing overall. Yeah,
That's right. I'd love to see it. I'm pretty sure we're going to see it. I have a feeling that,
so.
maybe a few years down the line, we're going to be talking and you're going to be a WWE talent. So I hope that happens. And I'm certainly looking forward to it. Now, it was such a pleasure, Hari, talking to you. It's been such a fun, conversation. But before we go, I would just like to bring our attention to some of the wonderful merch that you have out. And, we're talking about this one right here, Defend Indian Wrestling. I love this. By the way, everybody watching this right now, you can see the link at the bottom, harisingh.bigcartel.com. You can order this merch right now. Now, Hari, what inspired this particular piece of merch? Defend Indian Wrestling. You see Taj Mahal. What was the story behind this one?
So this is more of a comical thing more than anything else, because there's a big brand that started in the UK, which is Defend Indie Wrestling. And I thought, let's put a play on words in this type of situation. So I was like, why not do Defend Indian Wrestling, and let's just see how well it did. And it did well. I've only got like that t-shirt's so old now. I've only got like a few sizes, but yeah, it was a comical thing more than anything else.
That's funny. Yeah. And then we have, apart from Defend Indian Wrestling, we have this one right here, the Punjabi War Prince. It's amazing, the tiger right there. I love this design. And we've got this one. I think this is a personal favorite. We see a whole new Hari Singh. You an Aladdin fan, Hari? Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, it was. I really liked the design. I just wanted to. At the time, Aladdin was being remade, and I was like, okay, let's jump on this and let's just do something with that. But my favorite one is most definitely the Punjabi War Prince one. That's my latest one as well. But the design and how it looks and how I want my brand to be portrayed, that's exactly what it is, and that's exactly what it encompasses. So.
I love it too. Guys, you can order this one right now on Big Cartel, harisingh.bigcartel.com. Head over there, place your order right now. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be doing it right after this conversation. Hari, it was such a pleasure. Now, before I let you go, I mean, you're on fire. It's been 7 weeks into the year 2022, and you've wrestled like 7 matches already for about, I believe, 5 different promotions. So what are the big plans that you have in store for us for the rest of the year?
You have to wait and see. So I've got like 5 shows this week coming up because it's just there's a lot going on. I'm in various different cities, so yeah, I'm excited to see how this goes. But yeah, thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure, Hari. Thank you so much for being here. And for those of you watching this right now, the links to Hari's social media are right there in the description. Click on them, follow Hari as he rises up the ranks and gets on our TV screens very, very soon. Thank you so much, Hari. It was a pleasure.